Unbelievable moment. CEO's plea for mercy exposed an inspiring single dad's hidden strength. The phone's ring shattered the stillness of Jason's small apartment, a shrill reminder that his world, already precariously balanced, might soon tilt further. He could almost see the skyscrapers ruling over Chicago from his window, their shadows lengthened by the weight of ambition and anguish. A tolling bell for dreams unfulfilled. He answered. The voice on the other end was Caroline, the slick-suited CEO of the firm he once poured his heart into. "Jason, I need your help," she pleaded, desperation thickening the air. He froze, caught between anger and a strange sense of formal obligation. How could this woman, clad in privilege, ask him for mercy now? A flood of memories bombarded him, sleepless nights spent huddled over blueprints, the relentless pressure to innovate while trying to silence the gnawing thought that he might never belong in this corporate world. Now, he was a delivery driver and a freelance contractor, roles that left his soul feeling hollow. Each hour was a juggle, a parcel dropped here, a home renovation there, all while Lily, his 8-year-old daughter, required both her father and a semblance of normality. His heart raced. Was this a cruel joke, or an opportunity wrapped up in a gilded bow? How different his life could have been if she hadn't cast him aside when he struggled to find his footing, reducing him to mere numbers on a balance sheet. As he prepared for the meeting, the weight of his own path crushed down on him. The imposter syndrome twisted in his gut. In her glitzy world, did she see him as a failure, a man who let go of his dreams? His stomach knotted as he entered the polished conference room. The spaciousness felt suffocating, void of the warmth and familiarity that filled his modest home. The contrast of their two worlds echoed around him, and he could see the judgment lurking in the corners of her piercing gaze. And yet, Caroline's facade crumbled. Beneath the glass and steel, he saw a woman unraveling, failing under the pressures that came with her position. She spoke of the stakes. If her controversial project failed, her empire would collapse. Her voice quivered with vulnerability. Jason's heart softened. Her dissent mirrored his own in a way he never expected to admire. All at once, he found kinship in her struggle, both of them prisoners trapped by their ambitions. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With trembling fingers, he shared the chaos of his everyday life, his pride wounded but his honesty undeniable. He spoke of Lily's laughter that illuminated his darkest nights, of the math homework that became a war zone after exhausting shifts, and the overwhelming fear that he may be failing her. The room pulsed with tension. He had laid bare the bits of himself he rarely showed the world, vulnerable, raw. But then came a moment where Jason felt the full weight of the world's expectations crashing in on him. He realized the talk drowned out what lay between them. He challenged Caroline to reconsider her legacy. What became of all those like him who toiled in obscurity? He could rise from these shadows or let them engulf him. The ringing phone suddenly shattered the fragile connection they had forged, pulling him back into the harsh light of reality. As she glanced at the screen, hesitation swept across her features. Could it be that two worlds, so disparate, could ever truly understand one another? The silence between them thickened with unspoken truths. Jason's heart thrummed in his chest. He wondered if the privilege could truly comprehend the anguish of empty hours, or if he could navigate the chasm dividing him from the life he once envisioned for himself and Lily. The tension electrified the air, the future beckoned uncertainly. Silence enveloped the conference room as Jason's words hung in the air. He could feel the fidgeting of Caroline on the other side of the vast glass table. It was peculiar, this sensation, a mix of adrenaline and vulnerability that surged through him as he faced his former employer. Was he finally stepping onto a new stage, one where he could redefine his worth? Or was this simply an echo of old scars refusing to heal? Caroline's gaze remained locked on her phone, the glow illuminated her face, but it failed to brighten the heaviness that saturated the moment. She finally placed the device down, visibly shaken. Jason leaned forward, curiosity piqued. Do you really think I can help? He asked, his voice steadier than he felt. The words rolled off his tongue, but beneath the surface, doubt loomed large. Did she see him as a resource or merely a relic of her past, a mistake she hoped to amend? Yes, she replied, softening her tone. This project needs someone who understands the ground level, someone who has experienced the reality. I need you, Jason. A heady mix of emotions swirled within him. He had doubted himself, but here she was, acknowledging the very qualities he'd spent years minimizing. The irony was not lost on him, it struck harder than any rejection he had faced. Jason leaned back, processing her words. Was this the turning point he had sought, or just another trap of misplaced trust? After an excruciating pause, he made his choice. All right, let us talk details. As they delved into the particulars of the project, Jason felt his pulse quicken. Concepts bounced around the room like sparks as he offered insights, conjuring memories from a life that seemed so distant yet so achingly close. With every suggestion, he felt the shadows of doubt recede slightly. This was his domain, his expertise, and for the first time in years, the pieces of his former life began to stitch themselves back together. Yet, as discussions unfolded, an unsettling thought hovered over him. Could he disconnect his ambition from the fear of history repeating itself? He had experienced failure, the kind that lingers like a cold afterthought. But he also understood that growth often sprouts in the most barren soils. The stakes were astronomically high, and this time, it was not just his dreams on the line. Lily's future swirled in the currents as well. Jason caught Caroline watching him intently, searching for cues, perhaps even hope. He wondered if she recognized the latent potential now ignited within him. If we're doing this, he said, suddenly resolute, we need to channel authenticity. Let's not dress it up with corporate jargon. People need to feel connected to what we're doing. Her lips curved into a slight smile, and he could sense an understanding glimmering between them. This was not just a transaction, there was a shared ambition, a dangerous kinship born from transparency. It was exhilarating yet terrifying. After several hours of strategizing, they eventually adjourned the meeting, but a creeping thought invaded his mind. Had they done enough? With the taste of leafing through unmarked territory lingering in his thoughts, another call came through as they walked out, a familiar voice that filled him with dread. Lily's mother, Shannon, had chosen this moment to resurface, her voice slicing through his newfound resolution like a jagged knife. We need to talk about your visitation, she said coldly. Jason felt the air rush out of his lungs. Was he truly ready to face the implications of his past, just as he was reclaiming his future? He looked up, staring into the unfamiliar chaos around him, both excited and overcome. The time had indeed come to face his greatest fear, finding balance between personal demons and professional aspirations. Would he rise above it all, or were the shadows of his past set to drag him down? Jason's heart raced in his chest, clinging to the remnants of the meeting as he stepped away from the polished table that had been witness to his tentative revival. Each footfall echoed with newfound determination, yet he couldn't shake the tension caused by Shannon's voice still ringing in his ears like an ominous bell. The sharp edge of anxiety cut through the adrenaline high he had just experienced, threatening to pull him back into the depths he'd worked so hard to escape. Outside, the city buzzed around him, a swirl of conversations, moving cars, and scattered lives, all indifferent to his internal storm. He took a breath, squaring his shoulders as he opened the door to the cold night air, trying to ground himself. Face forward, he muttered under his breath. Facing Shannon was not just an obligation, it was a chance to confront the past that haunted him. With each step towards his car, Jason replayed the day's events. He had spoken boldly in the meeting. Caroline's faith in him had lit a flicker of possibility he couldn't ignore. Yet, with every encouraging thought came a whisper of doubt. Could he really balance the demands of this project with the weight of being a father? The stakes were high, the thought of failing again seemed unbearable. The weight of his responsibilities as a father had often felt like an anchor, dragging him down. Yet, this time it was different. He wasn't just carrying the weight, he was ready to mold it, to build something stronger. Taking a deep breath, Jason resolved to use his faltering confidence as a motivation rather than a crutch. As he drove toward his apartment, an idea began to take shape. What if he allowed himself to connect the dots between his two worlds? His professional ambitions could enrich his role as a father, turning his journey into a teaching moment for Lily. He envisioned nights spent poring over project details while she crafted her school assignments across the table. Could there be a way to intertwine their lives more deeply? Pulling into his parking spot, Jason glanced at his phone, debating whether to reach out to Shannon. The dread lingered, threatening to cripple his resolve. But as he took a moment to draw himself upright, he reminded himself that part of growth was embracing discomfort. "It's time to step into the fire," he whispered, steeling himself to face the complexities of parenthood. His fingers danced over the screen, hesitating before finally hitting dial. Each tone echoed in him like the chronicle of decisions well past due. When Shannon finally answered, her tone was as icy as he remembered. "What's this about visitation?" she demanded without preamble. Jason bristled, but he recognized that this collision of their realities was inevitable. He was no longer the frightened boy she once knew. He had plans, ambitions and identity to defend. "I want to talk about what's best for Lily," he began, his voice trembling only slightly. With every word, he felt a flicker of electricity, a growing resolve. He outlined his intentions not just as a father but as someone ready to actively participate in her life, a desperate challenge against the stunt of his past failures. When the call ended, Jason felt unburdened. The shadows did not vanish, but they began to reveal the contours of a determined path ahead. He had taken the first step toward reconciling those disparate aspects of his life. As he entered his apartment, he glanced at Lily's photos lining the walls. Her joy radiated, reminding him of the light he wished to nurture. Could this be the shift that fortified their bond and allowed their lives to flourish? A knock at the door pulled him back. Maybe it was Caroline with next steps about the project, or perhaps it was Shannon, coming to disrupt his moment of clarity. The uncertainty churned within him, urging him to slow down. Jason reached for the door, heart racing. What awaited him on the other side? In that split second before he opened it, he pondered the true test ahead. Would he embrace the challenge as a catalyst for growth, or would he falter under the weight of either woman's expectations? Jason hesitated for a heartbeat, caught in the tension of the moment. As he swung the door open, he found himself staring at Caroline, her presence radiating an unexpected warmth mixed with urgency. She stood there, vibrant and composed, dressed in a tailored suit that only accentuated her professionalism. Behind her calm exterior was a whirlwind of resolve Jason sensed before she even spoke. "Hey, Jason. I'm glad I caught you," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Her words were confident, yet her eyes searched his face, likely trying to read the depths of his emotions. "I wanted to talk about the project. Things are escalating, and we need to strategize." Jason's chest tightened slightly. He had just stepped into the world of fatherhood in a way he never thought possible. The weight of that newfound responsibility loomed, but here stood Caroline, offering a lifeline, a chance to prove himself professionally while navigating the turbulent waters of his personal life. "Yeah, of course. Just let me grab my notes," he replied, his mind racing. He mentally shifted gears, now fully aware of the demands pressing upon him. Following Caroline to the small dining table, he set down his laptop, the glow of the screen reflecting the uncertainty still clouding his thoughts. As Caroline pulled out documents detailing timelines and budgets, Jason's brain whirred with both excitement and anxiety. This project was more than just work, it represented his commitment to rebuilding a life for himself and Lily. But it wasn't just about professional success. The stakes included proving to himself and to Shannon that he was capable of balancing both realms. "Here's the deal," Caroline began, her voice piercing through his whirlwind thoughts. "We need to establish a clear timeline and secure resources while managing team dynamics. It's a lot, but I believe you're ready for this." Jason could feel the pressure mount, yet he welcomed it. The chance to show his worth was now more than a mere want, it was imperative. Parsing through the details, he found a rhythm and an odd sense of calm washed over him. Each word he contributed carried weight and importance. He wasn't just participating, he was leading. As they worked late into the evening with scattered papers and takeout containers, Jason glanced at Caroline. There was a gleam in her eye, a silent acknowledgement of their teamwork, not just of their roles but of the journey they were embarking on together. For the first time, Jason felt like he was adding value not just to the project, but in a larger sense, to himself and the role he aspired to fulfill as Lily's father. Eventually, conversation drifted beyond work. They shared bits about their lives, carving out a connection that felt both professional and personal. He learned about her aspirations, the sacrifices she made to move ahead in her career, and in turn, he spoke of the dreams he had for Lily and himself. This back and forth began to cement a new understanding of partnership between them. Yet, even as they laughed over shared anecdotes, an unsettling realization struck him. Could he risk this newfound working relationship spiraling into something more? The question hovered, taunting him. He reminded himself that a balance wouldn't only be pivotal in his professional life but would also serve as a model for Lily, demonstrating how to navigate relationships while maintaining boundaries. When Caroline finally stood to leave, Jason felt an unexpected reluctance. Their collaboration filled a void he hadn't realized existed. In the span of an evening, he had rekindled a flicker of ambition he feared was lost. Yet a familiar cloud loomed. The consultative phone call with Shannon had yet to bear its fruit, and he couldn't ignore the growing distance that remained with her. "Thanks for tonight," Jason said as Caroline reached the door. "I really appreciate your faith in me. Just remember, it's not just about trusting you. It's about trusting yourself," she replied with a smile, and with that, she vanished into the night. As the door clicked shut, Jason stood in silence, contemplating her words. The role of a single father was still riddled with challenges, yet it felt different now. He had embarked on a path newly shaped by ambition and honesty. But just as he felt a sense of empowerment flood him, a text notification flashed across his screen, a message from Shannon. Blood ran cold through his veins. With his heart pounding once again, he steeled himself. What now awaited him in her words could change everything. Would he rise to the challenge or fall into old patterns? The answer sat in the palm of his hand as he opened the message. Jason's heart raced as he read the message. The casual language of Shannon's text felt like a taunt, reminding him of all the threads he had yet to weave together. "Can we talk? Need to discuss some things, most likely over coffee." He fought the instinct to crumble beneath the weight of her request. Instead, rising determination nudged him forward. He had come too far to retreat into old patterns. He set his phone down and took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. In that moment, the concept of balance stretched before him, an unsteady equilibrium he had to master, both in his professional and personal life. Would he let this conversation pull him back into the chaos of their past, or could he wield it as an opportunity to redefine their relationship? He leaned against the table, realization dawning. This was just as much about his role as a father as it was about becoming the person he aimed to be. Over the next few days, the tension churned within him, but he dove into the project with a renewed fervor. The challenge of collaborating closely with Caroline stirred something deeper inside, a sense of purpose, a clear path towards proving his capabilities. The project became his canvas, and in illustrating each detail, he began to paint a picture of who he wanted to become: a dedicated professional, a responsible father, and maybe, just maybe, a partner worthy of someone's trust. Each meeting with Caroline revealed new layers of their dynamic. She pushed him, challenged him, and listened. The most significant breakthroughs came during their brainstorming sessions, where spontaneity led to unorthodox solutions. It was during one of those late-night sessions, fueled by coffee and adrenaline, that he discovered his knack for logistics, an area he previously overlooked. His previous experiences ghosted in the background, but here, Jason was stepping into the light, surprising even himself. Yet, his mind frequently wandered to Shannon. What was she planning to discuss? A mix of dread and hopeful anticipation swirled within him. The impending conversation loomed, threatening to disrupt the growth he was beginning to sense. Could he really talk to her about boundaries, about their child, and the life he envisioned for Lily? Or was he merely a pawn in a game he thought he had moved past? That Friday morning, he found himself caught between his work commitments and that looming coffee meeting with Shannon. He glanced at the clock, recalibrating his day while preparing mentally for their meeting. There, in the corner of his mind, was absolute clarity. He wouldn't go back to the old ways of conflict avoidance. This time, he would lead the conversation. When the meeting finally came, sitting across from Shannon felt like standing on shaky ground. She looked the same yet different, her expression a mix of expectation and something akin to vulnerability. He steeled himself, drawing on the newfound strength cultivated during the past week, and said, "You wanted to talk about our future, about Lily. Let us start there." The words hung in the air, charged with possibility and uncertainty. He had stepped into the first bold move. But now, how would she respond? Would this conversation solidify the boundaries he craved, or would it plunge him back into turmoil? Jason noted the flicker of surprise in her eyes and knew that the moment was teetering on the edge. As Shannon opened her mouth to speak, Jason's mind raced, ready to pivot toward the path of clarity he sought. Would they forge a shared understanding that could redefine their familial dynamic? Or would old habits resurface, dragging them into disarray? This chapter of his life was just beginning, and the stakes had never felt higher. He leaned in, anticipation thrumming through him. This could change everything. Shannon took a moment to collect herself, her eyes searching Jason's expression as if it might reveal the intentions behind his bravado. Her silence stretched, thickening the air between them. Jason's heartbeat quickened again, urging him to take deeper control. A surge of clarity flooded his thoughts. This was no longer merely a conversation about Lily or the remnants of their past. It was a deliberate act of courage to reclaim his agency. "Jason," she finally began, her voice stitched with hesitance. "I didn't reach out just to discuss Lily. I need to talk about us." The words landed heavily. Jason's instinct was to shield himself from the surge of emotions, but this was precisely the kind of moment he'd been training himself for. Rather than rush to counter or retreat, he leaned back slightly, curious about where this would lead. "Okay," he said, allowing his tone to remain neutral. "What do you mean by us?" Her brow furrowed, and she seemed lost in thought for a moment, weighing her next words like a precious commodity. "We were so good together once, and I miss that connection. I guess I'm wondering if we can rebuild some of it for Lily's sake, too." The mention of Lily punctured through the tension, grounding him. It was a double-edged sword, though. Could the bond they once shared be rekindled, or was it simply a plea to revive the past without acknowledging the reality of their present? Jason exhaled, feeling the weight of responsibility sharpen his nerves. Staying locked in their past would inhibit his growth, yet something within him recognized the importance of lighting the way forward for Lily. "I appreciate that, but we have to be honest about this," he responded, pushing gently but firmly. "Trying to recreate what was lost won't work unless we're prepared to address the real issues." "Can we do that?" The flicker of recognition crossed her face. "You're right," she nodded, her expression shifting from anxious to resolute. "We need to be clear about what we want, what kind of parents we want to be. I want to ensure that Lily has a stable environment, and I think we can agree on that." "But it's complex," she admitted, a hint of vulnerability creeping back in. Jason felt admiration swell within him, witnessing Shannon embrace the complexity instead of shunning it. It signaled growth on her part, and that ignited a sliver of hope in his chest. They were becoming speakers of truth, stripping away the protective layers built over years of conflict. "It is complex, and it will take time," he agreed. "But honesty and clear boundaries are critical." As they discussed the boundaries each would need, Jason felt a sense of empowerment building within him. Each suggestion he made, each limit they considered, pushed him further from the shadows of his indecision. Meanwhile, Shannon responded positively, offering her insight and concerns. The dynamic was shifting this time, not weighed down by residual resentment but buoyed by a newfound respect. Their coffee cooled as they delved deeper, igniting threads of past grievances but weaving them into a tapestry of mutual understanding. Jason felt an unexpected thrill, discovering that in confronting these dialogues, he was simultaneously bolstering his own growth. He was not just a father or a former partner, he was a man crafting his identity amidst the evolving landscape of life. Yet, amid the revelations, a flicker of doubt sparkled just beneath the surface. What if, in this process, he allowed himself to fall back into old patterns of yearning. Would the resolve he had cultivated withstand the nostalgia that threatened to envelop them? By the time they exchanged goodbyes, standing outside the cafe, one question loomed larger than it had before. As Shannon walked away, with a promise to keep the lines of communication open, Jason felt a surge of determination. What if rebuilding was not about revisiting the past, but embracing the transformation of who they had become? In that moment, the urge to rise above his fears propelled him forward. This newfound possibility nested deep in his mind, the next phase beckoning. He needed to ensure that as he forged ahead, he didn't lose sight of the very boundaries they had just established. Each new insight unleashed a deeper quest for self. Was he prepared for the unfolding journey ahead? The following days took on a rhythm that Jason embraced with growing anxiety. Each morning greeted him with the remnants of their conversation replaying in his mind. He would sit at the kitchen table, the sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating the space with a clarity that seemed both promise-filled and daunting. As he sipped his coffee, he contemplated how their newly established boundaries would fit into his life and his evolving identity. After a long day at the office, he had taken to journaling, an act that felt foreign at first but gradually transformed into a practice of reflection. It opened doors to thoughts he was reluctant to confront. As he wrote, he considered his role not just as a father or an ex-partner but as an individual poised to reclaim his narrative. With each entry, he wrestled with lingering doubts, forcing himself to detail what he really wanted. The process ignited revelations buried beneath years of complacency and regret. His manager, Linda, noticed a shift in him during team meetings. "You seem more engaged lately," she remarked one afternoon, her smile brightening the stark office light. "It's good to see." Jason hesitated but allowed the compliment to sink in. "I've been reevaluating a few things," he admitted, his voice steady despite the uncertainty he felt within. "Reevaluation is the mother of growth," Linda replied, leaning back in her chair. The words resonated, prompting Jason to wonder if reevaluating his career might be just as necessary as reevaluating his personal life. Driven by this insight, Jason began researching opportunities within the company where he could take on more responsibilities and drive projects that excited him. There was a division focused on innovation that had recently opened up a few leadership roles. Would he dare to apply? He felt a spark of desire ignite within him, yet he hesitated. The fear of rejection loomed, whispering doubts into every corner of his aspirations. That evening, he sat in front of his laptop, the cursor blinking somewhat mockingly at him. He thought about the boundaries he and Shannon had set and the commitment to honesty they had forged. He reminded himself of his newfound strength in articulating his needs and goals. With a deep breath, he began typing, crafting his application with a clarity he hadn't known he possessed. Submitting the application felt cathartic. It was as if he had taken a step beyond the confines of his old self, pushing forward into unfamiliar territory. However, the exhilaration soon became entangled with anxiety. What if he was unqualified? What if he failed? The specter of self-doubt, ever present, threatened to overshadow his accomplishments. Days blended into one another as he waited for a response. He busied himself with Lily, engaging her in projects that nurtured her creativity. They worked on a birdhouse together, transforming simple wood into a home for their feathered neighborhood friends. With each shared giggle and every splintered finger, he felt the weight of his worries slowly lifting. It was a sacred space, a moment where he could be not only a father but a mentor, a dreamer crafting a legacy of resilience for his daughter. But then a notification pinged on his phone, jarring him out of the peaceful reverie. An email from HR arrived in his inbox, the subject line bold and brimming with potential. Jason's heart raced, caught between excitement and apprehension. What awaited him in that digital message? As he clicked to open the email, uncertainty wrapped around him like a chilling fog. What was the outcome, and would it push him further into his rebirth or would it shatter the brave strides he'd taken? The email opened with a formal greeting, the HR representative's name zipping through his mind like a roller coaster of emotions. Jason's heart drummed in his chest, each word blazing before him. He barely registered whether he was breathing. "Thank you for applying for the leadership role in the innovation division," it started, and his lungs seized up. The critical moment had arrived, yet uncertainty shrouded him. Would he find validation or further descend into self-doubt? He read on, the explanation drifting in a monotone that felt surreal. We appreciate your extensive qualifications and the passion you bring to our team. After careful consideration, we invite you to interview for the position. Relief crashed into Jason like a wave, almost too overwhelming to process. He almost wavered under its intensity. With it came a surge of enthusiasm that lit up his core, a fusion of anticipation and terror. His mind began to race with possibilities and questions. What would it mean to lead a team? Could he share the vision he had been developing during those solitary moments with his journal? But this joy was shadowed by a creeping fear. What if he couldn't perform? What if the interviewers saw right through his carefully crafted universe of self-discovery and recognized the imposter he feared he was? He clenched his fists, grounding himself. This was a chance he had been seeking, a chance to forge his path afresh. The day of the interview arrived faster than Jason had anticipated. Morning light filtered through the window, offering him a sense of clarity, but there was no escaping the anxiety that lurked beneath. He prepped meticulously, poring over company materials, anticipating questions, and rehearsing his responses until they swirled in his mind like unending cycles. But the internal dialogue grew chaotic. Could he display his earnest vision without sounding naive? Did he even have what it took to be a leader? He caught his reflection in the hallway mirror, eyeing the fatigue that clung to him, a visual representation of the battles fought in silence. But even within that reflection, he glimpsed someone else, a man willing to step out from shadows of doubt, a father striving to set a positive example for his daughter. Arriving at the office, he felt a superficial calm, but doubt gnawed at his insides. Once seated in the conference room, he feigned confidence, but the edifice quickly began to crumble when the interviewers introduced themselves. Their gazes were sharp, evaluating, dissecting. Yet, as volatile questions rolled out, something unexpected sparked within him. His voice grew steadier. He articulated not just his skills but the transformation he had undergone, the struggles that had shaped his professional ethos. Each answer became a celebration of his journey rather than a desperate reassurance of his qualifications. The more they probed, the more liberated he felt, as if his words peeled back layers of his very identity. He shared ideas on innovation, about nurturing creativity within the team, and how he believed an environment of collaboration could yield extraordinary results. Their expressions shifted from passive interest to lively engagement, sparking a raw connection. As the interview wound down, the head of the panel leaned forward, his demeanor suddenly kinder, more human. You've articulated not just a vision but a purpose, Jason. How do you see this role impacting your life as a father? The question hung in the air. This wasn't just about career aspirations anymore, it was an exploration of values. He contemplated his words, felt the truth resonating deep within him. Becoming a leader isn't just about authority, it's about setting an example for my daughter, Jason replied, the sincerity in his voice evident. I want her to see me rise through challenges and embrace growth, not merely endure it. As he exited the room, he realized that no matter the outcome, he had traversed a significant distance in his journey. The boundaries he'd drawn not just with Shannon but within himself were starting to solidify. Later that evening, he picked Lily up from school. She glanced up at him, her eyes sparkling with excitement, and he felt a rush of purpose. Perhaps new beginnings were meant to be shared, and he aimed to teach her that failure wasn't the end, it was simply a step towards something greater. But as he sat her down and began to share his day, another notification buzzed against his palm. This one came from his email again, the subject line ominous, final decision. As he opened it, his heartbeat collided with doubt once more. What colossal twist awaited him now? His breath caught as the email unfurled before him, and Jason felt the walls of his world tremble. What lay behind the words? His eyes skimmed past a few lines of text, slowly absorbing the heavier undertones. It wasn't just a notification, it was a decision that could alter the trajectory of his entire life. Thank you for your candidness in the interview process. We've carefully weighed our candidates, and after much deliberation, we regret to inform you that we have chosen another individual for the leadership role. The words felt like a freight train slamming into him, shattering the cocoon of hope he had woven over the past few weeks. Yet, as he read further, an unexpected sentence pierced through the fog of disappointment. However, we were truly impressed by your resilience and vision, and we wish to extend an offer for a different position within the team. This wasn't simply a rejection, it heralded a new path. Confusion tangled with intrigue in Jason's mind. Another role? Could he embrace it, or would he be forever tethered to this moment of perceived failure? His instinct was to reject it outright, a knee-jerk reaction fueled by bittersweet emotions. But could turning down this offer be a sign of his reluctance to grow, to challenge himself further? Beneath the confusion, the familiar spark of determination flared. He took a deep breath and set the phone down, allowing a moment of silence to envelop him as he considered the implications. His thoughts began to untangle, and he tapped into his innate desire not only to succeed for himself but for Lily. She had always been his guiding star, a reminder that his journey didn't just belong to him. The vision he aimed to nurture was not just about climbing a corporate ladder, it was about the legacy he could carve out for his daughter. What if this new role provided him with the platform to redefine leadership? To show Lily that it was okay to pivot, to adapt, and to embrace unforeseen paths? His mind raced back to the interview, where he discussed leading through vulnerability and collaboration. Could this unexpected offer be an extension of that very philosophy? With renewed vigor, he opened the email again. This time, he focused on the details. The alternative role suggested a position in project management, different, yes, but significant nonetheless. It would require him to engage closely with teams and implement innovative strategies, which he had already articulated passionately during the interview. He could foster the creativity he valued, guiding others towards breakthroughs. As he envisioned the possibility, the initial disappointment began to melt away, replaced by a flicker of excitement. What new connections could he forge? What insights could he gain? Jason knew this could very well be his opportunity to turn the perceived setback into a profound learning experience. After several moments of deliberation, he decided to reply affirmatively. He asked for more details on the role, expressing his eagerness to contribute to the team in this new capacity. Pressing send felt like releasing an anchor that had kept him bound. But as he sat back and absorbed the decision, another wave of anxiety crashed over him. As thrilled as he felt about the new opportunity, he was still navigating the fear of inadequacy, a cycle he realized would always be present to some degree. Later, as he tucked Lily into bed, she wrapped her tiny arms around him and murmured how proud she was. In that moment, it didn't matter what title he held at work. What mattered was how he handled the constant shifts in life, showing her that true strength came from addressing challenges with grace rather than avoiding them. "I might have some changes happening at work, sweetheart," he said, forcing a smile. "But I think they could lead to exciting opportunities. Like being a superhero?" She chirped, her eyes glowing with enthusiasm. "Yes, exactly like that," he replied, chuckling softly despite the deep-rooted tension. It was true, navigating this new role could very well feel like donning a superhero cape, one decision at a time. Unbeknownst to him, however, the decisions ahead would test not only his professional capabilities but also the very fabric of his values, as whispers of discontent swirled within the company. What would it mean for Jason to stand firm amidst the turmoil? The time had come to face hidden adversaries, even within the walls of his newfound sanctuary. Jason walked into the office the following week determined to welcome his new role with vigor. The energy around the workplace felt charged, but there was an undercurrent of dissatisfaction among team members. As he navigated the hallways, greeted by uneasy smiles from colleagues, he sensed the tension looming over the organization. This was no mere corporate bureaucracy, it was a breeding ground for manipulation and fear, and Jason decoded whispers of uncertainty surrounding the recent leadership reorganization. Instead of succumbing to doubt, he resolved to step firmly into his newly established position and make a tangible difference. Focusing on collaboration became his mantra, propelling him to engage with his team in new and meaningful ways. He assembled brainstorming sessions that encouraged open dialogue, allowing each voice to resonate, especially the quieter ones that often went unheard. Together, They delved into ongoing projects, redefining strategies that had become stale under previous leadership. Each meeting reinforced his commitment to authenticity, changing the dynamics within the team. Simultaneously, Jason reflected on the boundaries he had cemented with Shannon during their coffee meeting. It invigorated him, pushing him to guide their interactions toward transparency and mutual respect. Whenever it felt challenging navigating parenthood as a single dad, he tapped into the clarity he gained from that pivotal conversation. With Lily in mind, he questioned that nagging fear of losing himself in romanticized notions of rekindled affection with Shannon. He knew better than to romanticize what could resurface. It was vital to uphold respect and understanding as their priority. Academically, Jason began utilizing his evenings to enhance his skills further, enrolling in an online leadership program aimed at honing his change management abilities. With each new module, he found himself soaking in the teachings, discovering profound insights best illustrated by real-life experience. His mind actively sparked with ideas to implement at work, framing it not just as a personal endeavor but as a tangible resource for his team. The duality of growth, personal and professional, felt invigorating. At home, their joint crafting projects took on new meaning. A birdhouse now transformed into a forest community, a stage for vibrant discussions about nature, teamwork, and empathy. He wanted to instill in Lily that creativity and collaboration enrich both one's work and personal life. Each night he spent building alongside her merged their roles as father and teacher, forging a shared journey of discovery. Meanwhile, as if on cue, a pivotal moment presented itself. With his newfound clarity and drive, Jason addressed the shadows coaxing unrest among his colleagues, seeking to identify the roots of dissatisfaction through open forums. Initially resistant, team members gradually warmed to his authenticity. He encouraged them to express grievances not as complaints, but as avenues for growth. Gradually, the atmosphere began to shift, transforming the toxicity into a collaborative spirit, invigorating the team's collective output. Jason's confidence surged, echoing in conversations with Caroline, who had become an unexpected ally in his professional realm. Their meetings thrived on shared ideas for innovation, and he realized he'd not only transformed his relationship with her into a constructive partnership but had also proven that mutual respect could propel them both forward. He felt a deep sense of pride in his evolution, not as a means to impress but as an unwavering testament to his intent to forge trust and credibility, both in the workplace and in his personal life. The stakes soared higher when they prepared for their first major project, pitched together an initiative that drew from the grassroots engagement he had cultivated within his team. They merged their visions, each infusing it with unfiltered authenticity. As Jason stood alongside Caroline, presenting their synthesis of teamwork in front of their superiors, he no longer felt the anxiety that once used to paralyze him. It had transformed into a solid confidence, born out of genuine competence and recognition forged through effort. The meeting concluded with applause and acknowledgement, yet Jason's fulfillment extended beyond the external validation. The moment marked an indelible achievement. He had risen through doubt again, standing resolute in who he had become. That evening, he returned home with a heart full of vigor. Plopping onto the couch beside Lily, he smiled as they discussed the birdhouse concept, now imagining it adorned with other colorful structures they might build together. The discussions ignited her imagination and sense of teamwork, reinforcing lessons on collaboration that reached far deeper than their individual pursuits. As they crafted their night's creations, he felt proud not just of their tangible progress, but of the connection they were solidifying, demonstrating for her what being an active participant in one's life truly meant. Weeks swelled into a new rhythm, where Jason's professional endeavors harmonized with his personal growth. Yet, amid the momentum brewing, he felt the urge to send a message to Shannon, wanting to touch base now that clearer boundaries were in place. Jason crafted a few articulate sentences, aiming to navigate their dynamic concertedly. "I've noticed that our co-parenting discussions have evolved into something really positive, and it's something I value. I believe we can each be a better support for Lily through this effective communication." With a mix of hope and trepidation, he hit send, waiting for her response. Would she reciprocate this emerging respect, mirroring his growth? Or would the past uncertainties resurface? That uncertainty turned decisive one late afternoon when his phone lit up with her name and invitation to meet for coffee. What questions awaited, and could he continue embracing authenticity as they unveiled the latent potential of their co-parenting journey? As he prepared to meet Shannon, anticipation streaked through him unervingly. However, he steeled himself with the knowledge that he had built a life both personally and professionally that reflected who he truly admired. His focus sharpened, leading him to see the looming reunion as another step to balance, not merely chaos reclaimed but resolution celebrated. This was growth personified, trusts rebuilt, reconnections fostered, amounts reconciled. And as the threshold of that new collaboration opened, he knew the destination awaited just ahead. In this vibrant evolution, Jason understood he was a lifelong learner equipped for whatever lay next, woven with ambition, molded by experience, and grounded in the untamed purity of fatherhood. Your support is crucial in exploring these transformative journeys. You need to subscribe now to fuel your growth and hear more personal overcoming stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure this content reaches those who truly need it. Comment below your reactions and theories about Jason's journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who will benefit from this powerful conclusion. Let us spread the inspiration.